Welcome to Shelby's Shelf. This is my first video for this channel, and I just started this because I want to talk about books, and I love talking about books. And even if that's just talking to myself and I'm the only one who watches these videos, then so freaking be it. I am going to wrap up 2024 with 56 books, which is more books than I've ever read in a year. I was one of those people where I loved reading in high school, fell off the wagon in college and early in my career with productivity books forced down my throat. And then during my maternity leave, when I was so bored, my sister-in-law introduced me to Fourth Wing, which, like so many others, that reignited this love for reading. I'm currently wrapping up The Last Unicorn. I'm just over halfway. It's probably not going to be a 5-star read for me. I can appreciate the writing. However, I am someone, I don't know if it's because I've read so much YA this year in romance fantasy that I'm just kind of like a hit me over the head with it and tell me what you really mean kind of reader. But it reminds me of one of those reads in middle school where the teacher had to debrief it so much and go over, when the author said this, they really meant this. And I'm just like, just tell me how it is. So I like it, but it's probably not going to be a 5-star read for me because of that. So let's go over the other 55 books that I've read this year. I love this reading journal. I'm going to link it in the description because this has been great. And I realized that when I got another reading journal for 2025, that the layout of this is so much better. I like how the index has a capacity for like 70 books on here, where the other reading journal that I got for 2025, and it's customized too, it's such a waste of money because I now know it can only hold up to like 35 entries, which my goal for 2025 is going to be 48 books. For 2025, this year it was 36 books, and so blew past my reading goal for the year, but I'm not gonna set that as really like my goal moving forward. I'm just going to keep it to 48 because I don't want to feel like I'm, just chasing this goal and not enjoying what I'm reading. I was really surprised by how many 5-star reads I found this year. I am going to create a separate video to go over those 5 stars, but let's just get right into it. All of my books for this year. So the first book that I finished this year was The Serpent and the Wings of Night by Clarissa Broadbent. And then shortly after that, The Ashes and the Star Cursed King. I rated The Serpent and the Wings of Night 5 stars, which I know some people really rip this book apart, but I really enjoyed it. However, I was pretty sick of Rain saying "there she is," but it was moody, adventurous, unpredictable, sexy, thrilling. I do love the dialogue between the main characters and the complexity of her and her father's relationship with Vincent. I did find myself speeding through the trials part, but I rate my books off of my enjoyment of them while reading. So some books I do have to go on dumb mode for, and if I have to go to dumb mode to where I'm like, this is annoying, then that's okay. But clearly I'm not like such a high level reader yet. The fact that I get frustrated by books like The Last Unicorn. So The Serpent and the Wings of Night, 5 stars. The Ashes and the Star Cursed King was 3.5 stars for me. And that's where the "there she is" line got way too much. The book felt too long. I enjoyed Rain's chapters in the coup part of the book, but otherwise, it didn't excite me anywhere near as much as the first. Divine Rivals for me was like a 3.5 star read. Some people love that book, and I didn't even read the second book because the first book was like, oh, it's okay. I don't need smut in a book, but I'm like, I don't know. It was cute, but I really wasn't enticed to read the second. Then I did a reread in prep for Flame and Shadow. So I reread A Court of Thorns and Roses, of course, 5 stars. Mist and Fury, the book that I felt like changed my life, 5 stars. And I didn't even read, I literally just read those 2. And then House of Flame and Shadow, I gave it 4 stars. Honestly, this was so long ago, I feel like that I read House of Flame and Shadow. I was loving the beginning of the book with Bryce in the caves, but then I think the history of, I can't even remember what I meant when the history of, Thea could have been more meaningful and less confusing. Not a fan of Bryce in this book, which I feel like is a very common thread with a lot of people in their reviews of this book. That Bryce got really annoying. Love Lydia, of course. She can pretty much do no wrong. But then it felt boring, especially how the Sigrid part played out. Felt really anticlimactic. I really enjoyed Jessica's history though, and like that character arc. So 4-star read for me because I have my complaints, but Sarah J. Maas is still like this incredible author for me. And so 4 stars. Caraval, 3 stars. I don't think I'm someone who is really into the carnival setting, and Caraval was like pretty good, but okay. So 3 stars. Then I heard so much about Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. Read it. Learned that like, okay, I am a fantasy reader. I don't really like these it could actually happen books. But it was 4 stars for me because I felt like the writing was really good. And it was really cool how they went in how the video game part, those chapters played out. But it was 4 stars for me, and I remember it just being really brutal, and I couldn't wait to get back to my fantasy books. Then I read Legendary, so it's the second book in the Caraval series, and it was so good to me. It was 5 stars, and it was so good. I still remember just thinking like that was so good. Finale was the last book in the Caraval series, and that was incredible too. 5 stars for me. Then I read the Once Upon a Broken Heart series, and I am really passionate when I recommend to my friends, like, do not read Once Upon a Broken Heart until you've read the Caraval series first. People do it all the time, but I really think it robs you of something special because there's a love triangle, and if you already know how the story plays out for one of those characters, so then when you're reading about the love triangle in Caraval, if you read that after Once Upon a Broken Heart, it steals a bit of the like mystery and knowing what's going to happen. So Once Upon a Broken Heart was 4 stars for me. And then The Ballad of Never After, 5 stars. How that ended, so good. And then The Ballad of Never After, that was 5 stars. But A Curse for True Love I gave that 2.5 stars. That was pretty brutal. Let me see what my review of that one was, because that is super low. So much potential. No true explanation of Jack's apples. It felt rushed resolution, unclear breaking of Jack's curse. I didn't like how they weren't very explicit with it. Missing stepsister, ? Chaos is slaughtering families without repercussions. We only got 1 good kiss scene, and it just felt really unsatisfying for me. And I read that back in February, so it feels like a lifetime ago. Hence, I need to go back to my notes and reviews. So after that, then I went into the 6 of Crows duology. And 6 of Crows, I gave 4 stars. I recognize that like the writing is really good, you guys. I do like even more tension, but I appreciated the writing style. It took me a little bit to get into it because I feel like after you go to those really like YA romantic-y books, it takes you a bit to like get up to speed in the Brandon Sanderson and like the Leigh Bardugo way of writing, because it's just more mature and requires some brain power. So speaking of brain power, after 6 of Crows, I read From Blood and Ash. And that's where you really have to go dumb mode. It was 4 stars for me. I really liked it though. I really liked that book. But it was 4 stars. And so I was like, okay, now I was reading this on vacation. Then I read A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire. First off, my beef with this series is that I cannot keep track of which book is a part of the prequel series, which part is like the From Blood and Ash. The covers all look the same to me. Does anyone else feel this way? Because I get so confused and it like annoys me. A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire, 3.5. The main guy, oh my God, what was his name? Because he started to get so annoying to me. Hawk. oh my gosh, I already forgot his name. He has a lot of red flags, and I found Poppy to be kind of dumb of a character. And but it was like so smutty, and but the hawk guy was just pretty stupid. I feel like he could only describe Poppy as you're so interesting, you're so intriguing. It's like, dude, get a dictionary. I need, or a thesaurus. Like, I need you to describe this woman of your dreams using other words, using more words. He did not much for me other than like the yearning and obsession. So after I read A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire, that was 3.5. The Crown of Gilded Bones, 3 stars. It just started going downhill for me and started to feel repetitive. A Shadow in the Ember was 4 stars for me. So that's the first book of the prequel series, and I enjoyed that a lot more. Then I read A Light in the Flame, and that was 3 stars. So that was the second book. And now I'm like, okay, I need a break. So then I went and read Crooked Kingdom. So sandwiching the duology of Six of Crows and then Crooked Kingdom. Crooked Kingdom was 4.5 stars for me. That was really good. But I do wish that there was more of the Kaz and Inez romance to it. I mean, there really wasn't a lot, to the point where I feel like as a reader, we're so starved that the line about like, if I couldn't walk to you, I'd crawl to you. I mean, that's a good line, don't get me wrong, but we don't have many lines to go off of that where he was like honest in his feelings with Inej. Okay, so after Crooked Kingdom, that was a 4.5 star read for me. Clockwork Angel, 5-star read, and then Clockwork Prince, then Clockwork Princess. So these are the prequels to the City of Bones, City of Glass books. Wow, I need to do, now that I started this YouTube channel, I need to do these videos a lot sooner when I read them so that I have like so much more freshness. Literally my review for the Clockwork Angel, very good. The Clockwork Prince, love me some Will. Clockwork Princess, the ending was very clever. Wow, I had no time to leave these reviews. War of Two Queens. Then I tried to go back into the, from Blood and Ash years, give it another chance. 3.5 stars. Soul of Ash and Blood, 1 star. And that's where I was like, you know what? Get me off the train. Happy Place. I kept hearing about Happy Place. It was 4 stars for me. But again, just like the Tomorrow. I'm like, oh, I recognize this is good, but it just doesn't fulfill me how fantasy books do. Then I read my 27th book of the year was Powerless. 5-star read for me. I know you guys are, like, so many people criticize Powerless, and then I'm really going to piss people off when I tell them that Reckless was a 4.5 star read for me. I get it, but there's something with like the cocktail of those books that like I really like. One Dark Window was a 4-star read for me, but it was really good. I did really enjoy it. I liked the dark fantasy element to it. I liked the magic system with the cards. Then 2 Twisted Crowns was 4 stars for me. I mean, honestly, if I was reading this at a different point in the year, maybe it would have been a 5-star, but for whatever reason, 4 stars. Then I was like, you know what? I'm really going to get into the Shatter Me series. Those covers with the eyeballs, like, never intrigued me. Honestly, I kind of put off reading that because I was like, oh, I don't get it with these eyeballs. I don't know if I'm the only, I've never heard anyone talk about those covers. So maybe I'm the only one. But the Shatter Me series, I was like, oh, I don't know. And then I hear that it's dystopian and I'm like, ugh, I don't think I'd like that. But then I'm like, oh, well, I remember in high school loving Hunger Games. So I gave it a shot. Shatter Me was 4 stars, but Destroy Me was 5 stars. And that was my 32nd book of the year. Then I read Unravel Me, and I gave that a 3.5 star. Ignite Me was 3 star. And then I just kind of stopped because then I just kind of like, I fell off. Some people are like, oh my gosh, they get so much better after like the 2nd or 3rd book. And you guys, I didn't even write any reviews for these books. I was rating them, sure, but like even the 5-star destroyed me book, I left no notes. What was I doing back in November? Or no, July. Oh, I know. We were moving into this house, and so that's probably why I didn't leave any review. Okay, then someone at this bookstore, I often go to the Changing Hands bookstore in Phoenix. I freaking love that bookstore. I spend way too much money. They sucker me with the punch cards. And there's those like reviews on the shelves where people are like, hey, highly recommend this book. The Crane Husband was one of them. Don't read it. I don't recommend it. How do I describe The Crane Husband? It's technically fantasy. I'm sure there is some really deep meaning to this book that I'm just like not picking up on. I have a feeling it has to do with like the nature of these abusive relationships when it happens to your like mom, and it's from the daughter's perspective, and the mom ends up turning into like a bird, and she doesn't want her to fly away, but the mom flies away. I even gave it a 2-star because I feel like, oh, there's got to be something here with the writing that I'm just missing. But it really did nothing for me. I remember I kept reading it because I kept thinking like, okay, this is going to get really good. This is going to get really good. And then it never got good. So The Crane Husband, don't recommend that. That was my 35th book for the year. So I'm going to start going fast because I feel like, wow, I've only been recording for 16 minutes and I don't know how people can film hour-long videos because I can barely stand to be talking this long to myself. All right, 36th book. This is where big turning point for the year. Ice Planet Barbarians. People start this book as a joke. It's no joke. I realized that like 30 pages in. No joke. This is actually a really good book. I have 8 of the Barbarian Planet books. Ice Planet Barbarian books. It's so good. It was a 5-star read for me this year. So then naturally I had to get like so many of the other books. Barbarian Alien, that was a 3.5. Barbarian Lover, 3 stars. Barbarian Mind, 3 stars. So at this point though, then it's like, okay, I think I need something else for like a palate cleanser because each book focuses on like a different couple. And Ice Planet Barbarians was like the first borderline, if you don't like, you can't count it as like monster smut because they're still mostly like human. They're just barbarians, It's kind of, apparently people like say it's like a smutty Avatar. Okay, maybe. But I remember it started to get just kind of, and then that Liz character actually started to really annoy me, even though I have a feeling most people in my life would compare me to Liz. Yikes. Okay, then I started entering Brandon Sanderson land with Mistborn. 5-star read, so flippin' good. And honestly, I felt more confident as a reader, the fact that I liked the book so much, and finally read a Brandon Sanderson book because I feel like he's who fantasy readers like ultimately always end up with when they start in fantasy. And it's not smutty at all, but there's so much meaning to his books. And literally, like, you could just cry how beautiful they are, and all the life lessons interwoven. And you learn so much, not just about the characters, but about yourself when you're reading it. And I love that. Well of Ascension was just a 3-star book for me. I felt like it was definitely a filler in the series, because it was that middle in the trilogy, so naturally. But I was just kind of trying to rush through it to get to Hero of Ages. After Well of Ascension, though, I read Spectacular because now we're in the winter season, and it was this like novella to the Caraval series. And I'm like, oh my God, I love it. I can't wait to go back into my Caraval land. And Spectacular was absolutely not spectacular. 1-star read, and aside from A Soul of Ash and Blood, it was my only other 1-star read for the year. it was not good. Like I don't even recommend it. It fell flat for me. But then thankfully I read Hero of Ages right after that, and that was a 5-star read for me. That was the third book for the original Mistborn trilogy. And so now for 2025, I have many more Brandon Sanderson books on my TBR. So then went back into Barbarian Land with Barbarian's Prize and Barbarian's Mate. Those are both 3-star reads for me. At this point, I think I was so like accustomed to, okay, how the stories go. So it lost like the sizzle for me that those first couple books had. But to me, it's still like a fun, easy read. Just nothing too thrilling anymore. But very comforting too. So some people might really enjoy that. So after Barbarian's Mate, my 46th book for the year was Lightlark. And Lightlark was a 3-star read for me. Nightbane was a 3-star read for me. I'm not the biggest, like it took me actually a while to get into Lightlark. Then I had higher expectations for Nightbane because like Court of Mist and Fury is probably my favorite book for what it meant to me at the time that I was reading it, how I felt reading it at that point in time. I feel like that has a lot to do with how we experience the books we read. And Nightbane was just like, what were my notes for Nightbane? Because this was only maybe a month or so ago, and I was not having it. My only thoughts were, I do like the concept of lost memories and lovers. Of lost memories and the lovers to enemies to lovers. I do, I actually do like that. And that was it because, frankly, very forgettable for me. Then I read Skyshade because at this point I'm like, all right, I'm 2/3 of the way through. I just need to see this through. Skyshade was a 2-star read for me. I am totally on board with the people that like this main character girl sucks. I do not like how she did Grimm dirty. Like she does not deserve Grimm. And that was my main takeaway. Then I read The Night Circus because I was like, you know what? I want to be a serious fantasy reader and I feel like I need to read The Night Circus. And again, I was reminded that like the circus aesthetic probably isn't really for me. 3 stars. 3 stars. I mean, I feel like I would love a real life circus so long as there wasn't, animal abuse involved. But reading about a circus, I don't know. It's like it just doesn't hit for me. But it was still, I could appreciate how it was written. 3 stars. 6 Scorched Roses. Very low expectations for this because I had read the Serpent and Wings of Night, Ashes and the Star-Cursed King in the very beginning of the year. And 6 Scorched Roses was so good. It was the perfect like amuse-bouche book, novella, 5 stars. And I loved it. Like, even though it was a smaller book, like the pacing felt really great. It felt real. I loved it. And then I read When the Moon Hatched, and I was like, okay, that was a thinner book. Like, I'm going to tackle this thick book that I've had on my shelf for months. And that was a 5-star read for me. I love When the Moon Hatched. Like, I love the cover. It's so beautiful. At this point, you know, if you're watching this, you've seen the cover. And I really did like it. I love the main character guy. What's his face? I cannot remember these people's names for the life of me, especially because they're always like something like weird. Too. Okay. I didn't even write his name, but here was the review that I wrote. Fitting that last year I read a 5-star book during my mom's passing, and now I mourned her 1 year later reading another 5-star. The literary gods knew I needed this. Epic fantasy, the right balance of spice, unique magic. I can't wait for number 2. One of the most beautiful worlds and dragon descriptions. Oh, Khan. And I think it's pronounced Khan, not Can. I don't know. It's somewhere online. I remember I wrote Khan. Can. Yeah, maybe it's Con. Con is the ultimate sweetheart. Every fantasy lover needs this. Love this book. 53rd book for the year, Howl's Moving Castle, because at this point, and I watched so many YouTube videos on reviews for books. I read so much about Howl's Moving Castle and people, saying Sarah J. Maas ripped off Howl's Moving Castle. I read it again. Flashback to the books in middle school that, like, how they write is so like you have to pick up on every single thing, and there's so many books debriefing, like, when they did this they really meant this, did you catch this, they really meant that. Like a Taylor Swift song brought to life. And I don't want to think that crazy hard to enjoy a book, because if I have to debrief later, then I feel like I'm not appreciating the book while I'm reading it. And that's kind of how I felt about Howl's Moving Castle. There were definitely parts that I liked about the book, but it was okay. It was a 4-star read for me. Bright Young Women, though. Okay, so here's where I really veered off, because it's not a fantasy book. Unfortunately, it's not a fantasy book. It's hell no romance book. It's like a true crime book, but there are some parts that are obviously not real, and like she's speculating on what they must have been feeling at the time. It's called Bright Young Women, and this book had me wanting to rage the whole time reading it. I loved it so much. It's a 5-star read for me. I don't think for my mental health that I could read a lot of those books of the true crime, but I really liked it, and now I'm telling all the women that I know to read Bright Young Women. My 55th book for the year was The Songbird and the Heart of Stone. That was a 2.5-star read. I finished this like 4 days ago, and I already forgot most of it. Really not, clearly not memorable. And that was my 55th book for the year. Again, you guys, I love this reading journal. I would buy it again if I hadn't already personalized this other reading journal. But I will put the link to this in the description. I don't even know how those affiliate links work yet, so I'm not making anything off of that link, but just click it, check it out if you want to read it. If you want a reading journal, because I did really like getting the different colored markers and like really making it an experience to keep track of the books that I'm reading throughout the year. I will end this year with reading 56 books, and The Last Unicorn being the last of them. So far, I probably have like another day or two of reading this, and I don't think it's going to be a 5-star read unless it really surprises me. But my next video is going to be reviewing all my 5-star reads, going more in depth on those for 2024. So if you're watching this so far, thank you. I appreciate you. And leave me a comment if you really enjoyed or have strong feelings about any of the books that I talked about in this video. Bye, guys.